that cause extinctions seem to happen every 30 million years, and the hits seem to have a rhythm of 26 to 32 million years. Comet and asteroid strikes that kill from 10 to 50% of living things have happened as well. These include the 35 million year old 40-kilometer wide crater that is located below Chesapeake Bay in Virginia. Encounters with comets or asteroids that are not extinction-level events happen every 10,000 years. The smallest collisions, such as the 1908 asteroid that flattened 40 square miles in Siberia, happen every 100 years. The Tunguska event was nearly 109 years ago. So let's take a look at this raw footage from the 1921 Tunguska expedition, which displayed the aftermath of the huge Tunguska explosion of 1908. Comets and asteroids are all around us. Some orbit near the Kuiper Belt, while some orbit near Jupiter and the Sun, such as Shoemaker-Levy 9, which broke into 9 parts in 1992 and hit Jupiter in July of 1994, shown in this short video clip. The Kuiper Belt orbits around our Sun. It contains ice dwarfs, microplanets, asteroids, and comets. The majority of comets, over 1 billion, orbit further out in the Oort comet belt. Something out there has been pushing comets at us every 30 million years. Several theories about the possible culprit, put out in the 1980s and the 1990s, have not yet been proved. Here are 3. Nemesis, a companion star that orbits close to our Sun every 30 million years and knocks comets out of the Oort comet belt. Half of the shifted comets leave our solar system and half travel toward our Sun and Earth. NASA says that Nemesis hasn't been found, which leads one to conclude that there are other stars capable of sending objects hurtling towards Earth, and yet none of which are known to be near enough to cause changes in the Oort object's path. Planet X, a large planet in the Oort comet belt or even on the outskirts of our solar system. As it orbits, it affects the orbits of the smaller bodies, sending some our way. Planet X is supposed to be much larger than Earth, but NASA says it has not been found. I will talk more on this in a moment. And galactic rotation. Our Sun travels around our galaxy, and as we rotate around it, our path moves up and down, much like riding waves on the oceans. At some point, our Sun nears other stars or thick gas fields, which change the movement of the comets. In 2015, a hidden planet was discovered in the Kuiper Belt, and it may be responsible for periodic comet strikes. This planet, dubbed Planet 9, is larger and closer than Planet X was thought to be, but it is probable that it could push comets close to Earth. Planet 9 could be 10 times the mass of Earth, but we can't see it. It's still a considerable distance out and too dim to be seen with our current telescopes. So how do we know it's there? It can be determined mathematically. In a January 2016 Astronomical Journal article, Caltech astronomers Konstantin Bidogen and Michael Brown wrote that 11 dwarf planets and large asteroids in the Kuiper Belt, including Sedna, which is 995 kilometers in size, have orbits that cluster together. Their orbits all close together in the same area, less than 30 degrees apart, without the objects hitting each other. This couldn't have happened by chance. The probability is only 7/100%. The clustering couldn't happen unless there was a large planet forcing the orbits of these 11 large bodies together. The hidden planet may have an orbit that passes through the orbits of the affected bodies. It could be some time before our telescopes are big enough and the hidden planet is close enough for us to see it. But these are mathematical calculations, so we have no way of knowing for a certainty when that day will finally arrive. This unseen planet is big enough to cluster 11 large bodies. But is it responsible for the periodic strikes of comets and asteroids? Only more research will tell us. So we'll keep looking up to the sky in our search for answers. As we continue searching the skies for the true position of the elusive Planet X, it is now being reported that within days of the launch of a project by ANU for volunteers to identify candidates for the 9th planet, 4 possibilities have now been found. The response from skywatchers was swift and impressive. Within days, 60,000 people had classified more than 4 million objects. If the so-called Planet 9 is as large as Neptune, shown here, and less than 350 astronomical units from the Earth to the Sun, then it's probably one of the 4 possible candidates detected in the last few days, according to scientific analysis of the announced candidates. But like most of the reports originating from agencies affiliated with NASA, one must look at the new information with a bit of skepticism and question what this really means and what this is really all about. If you get time to view our Facebook page, you will notice that we receive a number of extraordinary images and videos on a daily basis from followers across the world. There is one video taken by Louisiana resident Danny Garceau on April the 1st. The video has garnered a great deal of attention. I would say that this is one of the most convincing captures of the star system that I have analyzed over the years. The brown dwarf in a very rare appearance as it orbits our sun in retrograde fashion. And there was also a series of images taken on March 16th and 17th, which are equally incredible, showing the presence of a celestial body. These images are posted on our Facebook page and can be viewed close up. Week of November 2016. There are increasing indications that Planet X, also known as Nibiru, is moving in a precise direction towards planet Earth. So what does this suggest for those of us who dwell on this planet? Is there actually a biblical link that correlates with the end times as we know it? Many of you believe that NASA and other government bodies, such as the Pentagon and the CIA, are aware of its approach. Your belief carries considerable weight, considering the recent publication of scientific studies claiming that there is proof of an unnamed mysterious planet lurking beyond Pluto. The claim was determined by observations of gravitational influences on a group of celestial bodies called the extreme trans-Neptunian objects, which are orbiting our sun beyond Neptune. The approach of the mysterious planet Nibiru is at present sending waves of charged plasmatic energy particles through our solar system. The flow of energy will finally affect the core flows of the Earth and result in catastrophic changes in Earth's climate, which is without a doubt occurring on an escalated scale. Planet Earth has been feeling the effects of this inbound planet or system of planets since 1996, with records showing a troublesome increase in seismic and volcanic activity, extreme weather patterns, and catastrophic disasters. U.S. and Russian governments are aware of its approach, as is the Vatican hierarchy, which is keeping a watchful eye on the heavens, with their sophisticated telescope perched high in the mountains of Arizona. In the meantime, the public is being kept in the dark regarding this approaching apocalypse. The consensus by many is that such an event would annihilate 2/3 of the world's population, while 2/3 of those who survive the initial impact will perish over time due to starvation and exposure to the elements. The question that persists with respect to Planet X is whether this mysterious planet that scientists now claim exists beyond Pluto is the same planet that is believed to have wiped out much of humanity thousands of years ago. There is, however, more to this story than what meets the eye. Based on the research study known as extreme trans-Neptunian objects and the Kazi mechanism, signaling the presence of trans-Plutonian planets, posted in 2014 in the Journal Monthly Notices of the Royal Astronomical Society letters, there are at least 2 planets, part of our solar system, larger than Earth, lurking out there beyond Pluto, and whose existence can be noticed through their gravitational influences. So it is fair to say that NASA understands that these planetary objects are a serious threat to our civilization. It is widely perceived that researchers had proposed that the so-called Planet X was at least 10 times as large as Earth and was most likely situated at a distance of 250 astronomical units from our Sun, with an orbit of 10 to 20,000 years. There is an understanding that an approaching large body or a star system of planets and moons can trigger considerable differences in magnetic activity, and recent data from our magnetosphere indicates that this is what is now taking place. There were even suggestions that Google Sky had revealed an area in space that had been censored by NASA, showing the winged globe moving through our solar system. So are these subtle warnings an earnest attempt to inform us that an apocalyptic situation is at hand, which is coming from out of this world, something previously unknown to humanity, but which have memories in our subconscious from past lives and records kept over the ages? If we consider the ancient era of Atlantis and Lemuria and what happened to these civilizations, is it any wonder that NASA would redact the location of this incoming body on Google Sky or in their own imagery? Every week, NASA appears to have learned something new that was unimaginable, and yet they want us to imagine that Planet X Nibiru is unreal. As you can envision, the gravitational consequences of a sizable planet moving close to the inner solar system would spell huge problems for planet Earth. Not only are we witnessing climate extremes and a shifting of the Earth, but we are now bearing witness to the very real observations that the 4 seasons, as we have known them, are now blending. So with all of this in mind, we can now ascertain why certain governments are taking steps to protect their own interests as they prepare for the arrival and the aftermath of this large planetary body or system of planets moving through our solar system. Here is some news that has been widely reported, but which some of you may not be aware of. Russia recently completed building or updating some 5,000 shelters in Moscow. They actually have been quite open about what they are doing, but they haven't specifically stated the actual reason for constructing or updating these shelters. But we do know that they have some facilities that can accommodate up to 100,000 people. The United States is estimated to have over 150 deep underground military bases. Coincidentally, a huge military underground city exists below the Denver airport. Now, these are entire underground cities that have been under construction since the 1980s. But this is a need-to-know classification that is underway and is never published in advance for fear of destabilizing the economy. If you do any research of this topic, you are bound to run into various forms of disinformation. Now, some of it intentional, but much of it produced by uneducated individuals within the public. Until the discovery of Planet X, astronomers had regarded the writings of the ancient Sumerians about this object as legend. When Planet X was discovered in 1983, they suddenly learned that the Sumerians were not the primitive people they had been made out to be by intellectuals of today. Have you ever wondered what the real purpose of the Hubble Space Telescope was intended for? It was not to explore the universe and the solar system, as some have suggested. Rather, the reason for constructing this multi-billion-dollar telescope and then placing it in orbit was for the purpose of observing the inbound Planet X. A June 6th interview with a Hubble insider states this fact as to the Hubble's purpose. He watched this mysterious body through the Hubble telescope and stated that this thing looked as if it was nearby, and the Hubble got cut off, and they encrypted it, and that was the end of any transmission. So let's listen to this interview.
Back in the 1950s, most people aren't aware of it, but there was a scientific storm in America all through the late 50s about this thing out there in space, because the astronomers were all watching it, and that was back when they weren't afraid to talk about it. It was in the science magazines. I mean, I had a subscription to, like, Popular Science, and hell, it was on the front cover of the magazine one day in, like, 1961. And I was really excited when I saw it, because here's this giant red planet on the horizon of the California coast, and a humongous tidal wave coming in towards the coast. And having grew up in the mountains of the Sierras, and this thing in the magazine, it said this tidal wave coming in was going to be at least 3 miles high. And I went in and showed it to everybody in the house, and they laughed, and they said, look, it says right here, there's nothing to worry about. It won't be here for another 50 years. Hey, guess what? That 50 years has came and gone, and this baby's out there in the sky. They've been watching it. I watched it, and I can tell you, this thing has got so much trash coming around it. You know how we live in a solar system? We've got 9 planets and a big sun. This thing has got 7 planets and its own sun. The years as it went by and we watched it, it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then finally, about 2008, we could see this thing like it was across the street. And we could see that it was a blazing hot ball of fire, giving out sparkles of red iron oxide dust for thousands of miles in every direction. And you could see the planet circulating it. Now, I'll tell you one thing that I really am nervous about. I think this thing's got a planet like ours circling it. This is its own solar system. We're about to have a solar system come through the middle of our solar system. This can't be good. But unfortunately, it looks as though that's what's going to happen. We were looking at asteroids. Right close to this thing, there's asteroids that are floating around right near the, that are orbiting the main sun itself. These things appear to be about 500 miles across. This thing looks like a giant red teardrop-shaped dust cloud, and you can see once if you're able to see it up close like we did, you can see every speck out there. Now, these CIA people that I know say that we're not going to be that close to it when it goes past us. They're saying that in order to attain breakaway speed, when it comes up around the backside of the sun, its speed will at least double, possibly more, which will put it here earlier than everybody is saying it will, and that this thing will probably be about 20 million miles from us when it crosses in front of us. and then as soon as it flips us upside down, we're going to go into its debris field. These CIA guys told me that this pole shift will probably happen from start to finish in around 28 minutes. That doesn't give you a lot of warning. When you see that thing out there in the sky, you're going to have to run as fast as you can to your underground facility, because this is going to happen so fast. Now, see, here's another thing nobody's talking about. You've got this giant iron planet that they say is 47,000 miles across, getting ready to come up past us. And when it starts to approach us, it's going to start and have real serious effects.
So is it a planet or a failed star?
It's not a failed star. You know, I saw this thing up close. It did not look like a failed star. It looked just like our sun.
Right.
Okay. Would you call our sun a failed star?
No. Okay. Well, you had said planet. I wasn't sure if it was like a failed star brown dwarf or a full sun. So it's a full sun?
It looks to me like a miniature sun, just like the one we have. The only difference is our sun is giving off flames and stuff, and this one's doing the same thing as it, but it's giving off this red iron oxide cloud of dust around it, and until it got close, we couldn't even tell what was in there. We could see it was hot, and it looked like it was just a dull red when we were first able to discern it through the red cloud. But as it approached, it started to become more apparent that this thing is just orange hot.
Right.
And it's got this enormous, and I mean enormous, at least 50 or 100,000 miles on each side of it, this red dust cloud that goes all the way around it. I know when we were watching it, as it started to make the upward swing to approach behind our sun, it was amazing. The red dust cloud settled down. Instead of being round, it started to settle down into a V, like wings, upside-down wings.
Right.
And I thought, boy, I wonder if that's where the ancient Sumerians got the idea this thing had wings, because, you know, centrifugal force is a funny thing. When it comes back up around the planet, when we see it in the sky, my guess is it's going to look like it's got wings, because centrifugal force is going to be pulling the red iron oxide dust and particles out to one side. This thing's going to look like a big red dragon, exactly like all the ancient Sumerians and the Chinese and all the rest of them that had documented this thing's passing before. It didn't look like a white ball or a snow cloud or nothing. It looked like a big red iron oxide dust cloud with a superheated star in the middle of it. And I mean, you know, and that's what we've seen. So, you know, I don't care what anybody else says. There's a possibility. There's more than one thing out there. You know, I watched it through the Hubble Space Telescope, and when this thing looked like it was across the street, the Hubble got cut off and they encrypted it, and that was the end of any transmissions we had to watch. And we know that the Hubble, in order to be in the shadow of the Earth, had to be at an angle, and so that meant it was looking downward, and this thing was coming up underneath of us, and I tell you the honest to God truth, I personally think this thing is real close to us right now, but, you know, that's just my general feeling that, you know, and I'm a pretty psychic guy. I have the feeling that this thing is right close by and that we're going to see it any time, okay? Because, listen, they've known about this thing forever. And I mean, they've known about it forever. I mean, if I read about it in a science magazine in 1961, that tells you that, I mean, it's only 1,800 years away. How could they not be able to see it when it came around the backside of the last sun and headed this way?
Right, right.
You have to know they've been watching it, because if you know, Carl Sagan was showing stuff that they took with their old telescopes that was billions and billions of miles away. And this thing's only 1,800 years away. Well, and by 1930, it was only 70 years away. You know, we do estimate that this thing, let me give you a thing, maybe you can figure out your own timeline. We estimated that this thing is traveling around 3,500 miles an hour, okay?
Okay.
That was our estimate of its speed. Now, it has been picking up speed, and that's the reason why we think it's going to arrive early, because when it comes around the backside of the sun, it's got to double that speed in order to attain breakaway speed to leave the sun and not wind up orbiting it. It's never orbited the sun in the past that we know of, so that means that it's going to have to attain breakaway speed to head back out into space. Now, you look at the NASA videos, photos, and all this other crap those morons put on the internet, this thing is coming in. It's going to, as soon as it goes around the top of the sun, it's going to go back out into space.
Right.
And it's going to do this really fast. When it goes past us, it's going to go past us so fast that we'll almost have no time to get ready. That's my opinion, but, you know, just drawing it out on paper a few times and thinking about it, and I went, you know, if this thing picks up enough speed to make breakaway speed, then that means it's going to come past us. You know, this thing, according to what I was told, is that this thing is approximately 47,000 miles in diameter, you know, 4 or 5 times the size of the Earth, and it'll come past us, and we won't have a lot of warning, and we won't get to see it in the sky until it's on us. Now, I was told that the poles are not shifting at 42 miles a year. They're shifting at 42 miles a day. And the reason is because this planet is rolling over to face this thing. Now, when it goes by, it's not going to push our North Pole away. It's going to grab our southern pole with its northern pole, and it's going to be like somebody kicked this planet in the ass. That earthquake that it talks about in Revelations, when the opening of the 6th seal comes, from what I've been told, that's very accurate, because that's exactly what's going to happen. There's going to be a massive earthquake when it locks onto us. As it goes past us, we're going to follow it right upside down. The oceans are just going to be roaring from pole to pole, as you could well guess they would, because if you take a planet that's 7,000 miles across and roll it upside down in 30 minutes, you're going to have some real serious problems with wind and water. We should be preparing to expect this thing to show up anytime.
So this particular insider is stating in the most revealing terms that something ominous is heading our way that NASA has known about for decades. Nibiru, aka Planet X, and referred to by the Vatican as Wormwood, has a mass that is 3 to 5 times the mass of Jupiter. Its composition is cesium, iron oxide, iron, oxygen, and ozone. And according to the interview by the Hubble Insider, it consists of 7 planets and moons that orbit it and innumerable asteroids. Its existence is known by all of the major governments of the world, and they are prepared, as I described earlier in this presentation. The object is very big, and until recently it is a red dwarf star visible only in the infrared spectrum. The agent claims that the government is monitoring the system and that in 2008 it could be seen in high detail with infrared telescopes. But the manner of observation is beginning to change. Using deductive logic, a number of independent videos are capturing its close approach now. We can speculate about its existence and whether the images and videos being published on a regular basis are genuine captures. But it doesn't change the narrative that something big is out there. Even the most reputable scientists are coming to the same conclusion that we have been warning about for many years now. That whatever is out there must be found and determined as to its impact upon the solar system and planet Earth. So it's no longer a question of whether it actually exists, but rather its actual location and how long before its absolute impact will be felt on our planet. In closing, I wanted to share with you a few troubling observations that were posted recently on Facebook. The first one is a capture from the Skycam Observatory in Deakin, Australia, showing the two-sun phenomenon. Now, the sun's companion has been visible in this side-by-side view on all Skycam for several days now, which indicates that the Nemesis system is rising to the ecliptic, as I mentioned in the video which I published on October the 28th. So something is definitely taking place now, and it behooves us to start paying careful attention to the skies. So if any of our viewers and subscribers have anything of value, any type of information or images you care to share with us, please forward them over here for review as soon as you can. Also mentioned in this video presentation was the indication that this system would be accompanied by a long trail of debris consisting of fairly large-sized meteors and asteroids. The number of space objects that are penetrating the Earth's magnetic field has increased substantially in the past couple of years. So take a look at this incredible capture from Japan on October the 31st. And finally, if this doesn't blow you away, check out this eerie sky captured from Las Palmas, Spain on October the 26th. So as you can see, something definitely is going on that is very difficult to explain. It was in mid-August of this year, as some of you are aware, that myself and my family members and a number of friends were among the many tens of thousands who suffered the worst flooding in recorded history here in southeastern Louisiana. We are still recovering from that devastation. The funny thing about all of this is that it seems that we encounter one extreme weather event after another. Since the Great Flood of 2016, we have had what is now considered to be one of the most severe droughts that this area has encountered in recent times for this time of the year. Not only has our temperatures been steadily above normal, but the rainfall has registered less than 1/4 of an inch for the past 2 months. So I can tell you firsthand from my experiences that things are changing quickly here on Earth and in the heavens. And it's important that we stay true to ourselves and help one another as we move through these troubled times. There are few secrets when it comes to evaluating the mounting evidence that a large celestial body is orbiting somewhere in the outskirts of our own solar system. Either you support the hypothesis of a rogue planet or you remain skeptical. Regardless of your belief on this topic, scientists are confident that a Planet X, or a Planet 9 as it is called by some, is out there. But since they haven't yet been able to locate its position, they are asking the public for assistance in locating the giant planet. Scientists at the Australian National University are publicly releasing images taken by the SkyMapper telescope at the university's Siding Spring Observatory in regional New South Wales. They are doing this in the hopes that Planet 9 makes an appearance. The telescope has been doing a digital map of the southern skies, producing hundreds of thousands of images. Therefore, they have invited the public, everyone, to access the images and try and find this planet. The project is similar to a public search launched by NASA called Backyard Worlds, which I spoke of extensively in a published video dated February 22nd of this year. The hypothesized Planet 9 remains mysterious, but scientists concluded that the planet existed after an analysis of Pluto's orbit, which may have been impacted by the gravity of another planet. Australian astrophysicist Dr. Brad Tucker emphasized that a calculation conducted 1 year ago indicated that in order to explain Pluto's orbit, you would have to place a supersized planet in this rough position, a theory that makes perfect sense. Neptune was actually predicted the exact same way, so there are historical reasons to believe that this theory is correct. For their part, intrigued stargazers haven't been looking up at the sky to find the planet. Rather, they're turning to their computers. A few days ago, the Zooniverse website posted photos of the southern sky. Since then, more than 30,000 volunteers have been studying those photos thoroughly, trying to spot the enigmatic Planet 9. They are calling it Spot the Difference, which includes observing an object moving through space over time. If you see something, you indicate the observation. Then the website calculates whether the object is on a good orbit. It then sends the information to the Australian astronomers, who will then follow the object with their telescope at the Siding Spring Observatory. They hope to complete the high probability dataset within the next several months. So something is definitely going on in our solar system that now includes astronomers from both NASA and the Australian National University, located in the southern hemisphere, where the Planet X system is believed to be approaching. I indicated in my last video dated March 23rd that I firmly believe that the newly discovered TRAPPIST-1 solar system and the Nemesis star system have coincidental similarities. In other words, they are probably one and the same system, with one notable contradiction. The system is not 39 light years from Earth, as NASA claims, but rather much closer, as recent evidence would indicate. There will certainly be a difference of opinion on whether NASA is being honest with the public on this subject. But even the most sophisticated debunkers cannot refute the evidence that suggests the presence of a large celestial body in space. It is, after all, NASA who is taking credit for the discovery of TRAPPIST-1, which they claim consists of 7 planets. It is therefore conceivable that this mini solar system that they claim exists could be harboring the mysterious planet known as Nibiru, Planet X. If our objective is only to discredit the research and discovery for whatever reasons, then we are only cheating ourselves in our quest to seek the truth. So there must be some common denominator that brings all factions together in an effort to locate and discover what scientists now believe exists in our solar system. The idea that TRAPPIST-1 could actually be the Nemesis system is just one theory, but it makes sense if you compare the similarities that describe these systems. But there's also another theory that makes absolute sense. Is Planet 9 really Planet X? There is overwhelming evidence to support this theory. Here then, once again, are the similarities. On December 30th, 1983, the Washington Post published an incredible story that indicated that a mysterious heavenly body had been found in the direction of the constellation Orion. Then 33 years later, on December 30th, 2016, NASA claims that at aphelion, Planet 9 would be in the general location of the Orion and Taurus constellations. Do you notice the similarity in these two statements? I recently received a message from a subscriber who began by saying, "All of today's news headlines are just a distraction from the real problem, Planet X." So in reality, there are numerous stories and videos that have emerged that suggest that Planet X is lurking out there, has been rebranded as Planet 9, which confirms some very old news stories about its discovery. With Planet X, or Nibiru, still called conspiracy theory or fake news by the mainstream media, we're now asking ourselves if the biggest cover-up of all time is about to come crashing down, while reminding you of the two 1983 stories published by both the Washington Post and the New York Times. So the search for Planet X continues, rebranded by this BBC news story as the search for Planet 9. The New York Times, as indicated, had published in early 1983 a story called "Clues Get Warm in the Search for Planet X," in which they reported something out there beyond the farthest reaches of the known solar system seems to be tugging at Uranus and Neptune. Some gravitational force keeps perturbing the two giant planets, causing irregularities in their orbits. The force suggests a presence far away and unseen, a large object that may be the long-sought Planet X. Reporting at that time upon the launching of the infrared astronomical satellite that would conduct a wide-ranging survey of nearly all of the sky over the following 6 to 8 months, detecting sources of not only ordinary light, but of infrared radiation invisible to the human eye and absorbed by the atmosphere. Scientists hoped they'd be able to chart thousands of previously undetected objects in the sky, with a dim hope of finding Planet X. 11 months later, on December 30th of 1983, the Washington Post published a story called "Possibly as Large as Jupiter," within which they reported in their first paragraph a heavenly body possibly as large as the giant planet Jupiter, and possibly so close to Earth that it would be part of this solar system, has been found in the direction of the constellation Orion by an orbiting telescope aboard the U.S. infrared astronomical satellite. The same U.S. infrared astronomical satellite that the New York Times story had mentioned would be searching for Planet X had found a heavenly body scientists described then as "so mysterious is the object that astronomers do not know if it is a planet, a giant comet, a nearby protostar that never got hot enough to become a star, a distant galaxy so young that it is still in the process of forming its first stars, or a galaxy so shrouded in dust that none of the light cast by its stars ever gets through." Talk of Planet X soon vanished from the mainstream media, and for many years until this day, those who spoke of Nibiru or Planet X were ridiculed, called tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists, and much worse, by those who are unable to grasp the existence of another celestial body in our solar system that just may be biblical in respect to our future. So again, I must say, do you see the connection between these two mainstream media reports and the recently announced discovery of new planets and a new solar system? 2016 brought us the hypothetical, quote, Planet 9, a massive, not yet discovered celestial body that the mainstream media reluctantly reported after Caltech scientists stated that a massive outer planet is the likeliest explanation for the similarities in orbits of 6 different objects. Dubbed Planet 9 after the death of Pluto, scientists explained how Planet 9 could be responsible for many of the mysteries our solar system still poses. In yet another coincidental similarity, Space.com published a story on October 19th of 2016 called Did the Mysterious Planet 9 Tilt the Solar System? That very same day, Astronomy.com published an article entitled Planet 9 May Be Responsible for Tilting the Sun. 4 days later, on October 23rd, Forbes ran a story called Mysterious Planet 9 May Be Pulling Our Solar System Out of Whack. Were all of these publications by mainstream media sources just fake news stories? I mentioned that NASA had indicated in December of last year that Planet 9, if it exists, which scientists now believe is probable, would be located in the constellation Orion. So, in another coincidental similarity, Planet 9 is located in the same general area that the Washington Post reported the mysterious heavenly body was way back in 1983. What the New York Times actually called Planet X before everything went silent on this subject. So once again, you must ask yourself, is Planet 9 the same massive body as Planet X? If it has a 10 to 20,000 year orbit, as they claim, it would be in the same vicinity of the sky today as it was back in 1983. So here is an interesting twist in this continuing story. Scientists have invited both amateur and professional public astronomers to scan the skies for the elusive Planet 9.
Pluto may not be a planet anymore, and you may not agree with that. But we now have the chance to understand why. A new potential ninth planet. But to do so, we're going to need your help.
We've been using SkyMapper, a robotic telescope at the Australian National University Siding Spring Observatory, to produce the first digital map of the entire southern sky.
We've taken literally hundreds of thousands of images of the southern sky, and hiding in amongst these images we think might possibly be Planet 9.
But we need your help to search for these images in order to find it.
Together, we may finally end the debate about Pluto being a planet and discover the first planet in our own solar system in more than 150 years.
But why call it Planet 9 rather than its real name, Nibiru or Planet X? Here is one possible and meaningful explanation. If you were to call it by its real name, the unaware masses would have a much different perspective of the biblical planet than if they were merely searching for information on Planet 9. Does this make any sense? You bet it does, and for very good reasons for those who control the masses. Our list of coincidental similarities is now on a roll. If the orbit of Planet 9 is believed to take 10 to 20,000 years to complete, what then happened to Earth the last time this monster came our way some 10,000 years ago? If we were to go back to the floods of Noah, then what would a planet that scientists claim may be responsible for tilting our sun and the solar system be able to do to the axial tilt of planet Earth should it come for a return pass? Daniel Whitmire of the University of Arkansas indicated that Planet 9 could be responsible for a series of mass extinctions that already occurred in our history by casting Kuiper Belt objects into the inner solar system. These would be the same objects that the Washington Post referred to as perturbing in their 1983 story. As it turns out, the Caltech astronomers responsible for this discovery quite appropriately referred to this planet as the perturber. Here is something that will help explain what is happening in our solar system that has great implications for the citizens of planet Earth. A mysterious phenomenon that has been happening that involves the solar winds becoming so dense that even NASA can no longer censor them. These are extreme abnormalities of the magnetosphere and significant radiation from the sun. The YouTube contributor who has been monitoring this has indicated that this does not appear to be a glitch, as it steadily returned to a normal flow, rather than going blank or suddenly changing shots, as often happens when there is a glitch in the equipment. So let's examine this as he displays both normal and abnormal monitoring of the magnetosphere on this particular date, March 14th. The bewildering race to discover Planet 9 provides credible evidence that NASA scientists are aware of something that all of us do not know. And what they know falls directly in line with that recent wave of energy that struck the Earth. Some of you may know or heard of Bob Fletcher. He has covered various aspects of the elite's preparations for a huge event, including the movement of large amounts of long-term survival food to secretive underground facilities. He has also reported why the 1% that are the elite have been preparing for a biblical event for many years. Here is one thing that many of you may not know. In 2016 alone, the interest in underground bunkers had risen by a whopping 700%. Overall sales of these bunkers grew by 300% since the November presidential election. Yes, the elite are gearing up for the apocalypse. There is many real anxieties that include nuclear warfare, a disease pandemic, natural catastrophes, and even the alleged coming of Planet X Nibiru. They are being built everywhere. In Poland, concrete security bunkers called the Safe House are being constructed. In Kansas, 161 protective domes called survival condos have been built. In South Dakota, a survival community is being planned to accommodate 5,000 people. In Germany, bunkers are being built that are said to be apocalyptic proof. In Texas, the sale of high-end underground shelters has risen dramatically in the past few months. Here is an example of how the elite are planning on riding out the storm that is coming. You may find this to be quite disturbing.
Everything's been quiet all afternoon. Conditions are green inside the silo, and we're good to go.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, sir.
See you in a bit. Thank you.
So it's evident in all that we see and read about that something ominous is on the horizon, is happening whether we wish it to happen or hope that it will just all go away. NASA and the media have all but admitted that it is coming. So has the whole world gone crazy on this subject? Well, according to Harvard psychiatrist Patricia Wallace, Nibiru is an addiction, a true disease that has inflicted millions of people who fantasize about a distant celestial object. Dr. Wallace believes these patients suffer from a debilitating condition, a diagnosable ailment that she calls Nibiru addiction. The disease, she said, manifests in 3 stages. The first stage is called Nibiru awareness. This typically occurs when a susceptible person is exposed to the word Nibiru or Planet X, often through word of mouth or read on internet conspiracy forums. During this stage, the individual is still a fully functional member of society, but in the back of his mind, he is constantly thinking about Planet X and how it will destroy the Earth. He doesn't speak of this openly or publicly, but may communicate anonymously with other believers. Over time, Nibiru awareness may escalate to the second stage, called Nibiru addiction, a deeper pathology that seizes the patient's psyche with overwhelming thoughts and visions of Nibiru. They may spend hours upon hours prowling internet forums, believing they are conducting Nibiru research to the betterment of humanity. They present compelling arguments with absolutely no evidence. In rare cases, Nibiru addiction escalates to what is called a Nibiru psychosis, by which point the patient has lost touch with reality. They perceive themselves as Nibiru messiahs, part of a savior movement dedicated to warning the world about an impending Nibiru apocalypse that will eradicate all life on Earth. Dr. Wallace has even petitioned the Centers for Disease Control to recognize Nibiru addiction as a potentially pandemic disease. Now, she said she had to quit treating Nibiru patients because, in her own words, she was beginning to have personal visions of Nibiru. Imagine that. A professional psychiatrist who is treating patients with the so-called Nibiru disease was actually herself beginning to believe it was true. So here is an example of an educated person attempting to make a valid argument about a subject that has been controversial and highly ridiculed since the inception of the Washington Post article way back in 1983, claiming that the planet has been discovered by an infrared telescope. But as you can see here, her conclusions are very questionable. First of all, she fails to account for scientific evidence that proves Nibiru's reality. Photographs taken from the Hubble and the South Pole telescopes, testimony from authenticated whistleblowers, and notable scientists that have mysteriously disappeared. So if you were to take this person's medical evaluation with any sense of credibility, you would have to conclude that she is probably out to make some sort of a name for herself, rather than to establish any basis for the existence of a heavenly body in our solar system. But there is one thing that is certain in all of this commotion about what's real and what's not.